Sorry, I'm just showing you a series of 6 photographs, and again, asking you to look at those and look up when you finish. And do you recognize those photographs?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
These are the photographs I took of item 7-18, the long sleeve gray shirt.
And those are sort of the preliminary or overall photographs, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I'll move the seat to introduce and admit as the next exhibits. No objection.
Thank you.
Exhibits 190 to 197.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hartnett, before I turn to these, I just had one follow-up question. And you had been talking about, or testifying about, sort of the difference between the root end and the shaft end of the hair. You had mentioned that the root end is typically something that would be attached to the scalp. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So that would be in reference to a hair that comes from someone's head, correct?
Yeah, but not necessarily. We don't perform body origin identification.
And so to that point, as far as the root end of the hair that was attached to the body at some point, whether it's the head, an arm, a leg, you don't know where?
Correct, I do not.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, I would ask to publish some of these photographs for the jury as well.
Okay.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have, excuse me, photograph 9789. Ms. Hartnett, I'm putting up on the screen now what's been marked as Exhibit 190. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
That is the photograph I took of item 7-18. It is the exterior front.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9790, the next photograph. What's up on the screen is Exhibit 191. You recognize that as well, Ms. Hartnett?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That is the exterior rear of item 7-18.
And if I could have the next photograph, Ms. Gilman, 9791. Again, do you recognize what's up on the screen now is Exhibit 192?
Yes, I do.
Can you explain to the jury what that is?
That is the interior front of item 7-18.
Lastly, not lastly, for this purpose, photograph 9792. And again, do you recognize what's up on the screen is Exhibit 193?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That's the interior back of item 7-18.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9795. Again, Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize what's up on the screen as Exhibit 194?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That is the exterior front of item 7-18, and it also contains markers that I placed on the item to note areas of damage.
And the next photograph would be Ms. Gilman, 9796. If you could zoom in on that one. Now, Ms. Hartnett, what we're looking at here, that's the right sleeve of the gray sweatshirt of item 7-18, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And so, starting with some of the 13 different areas that you labeled, this starts with 1, 2, 3, 4, and goes up through 9, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you, ma'am. I approach the witness again, Your Honor.
Yes.
Hartnett, showing you another series of photographs. Just ask if you could review those, look up when you finish. Hartnett, do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs?
Yes, I do.
Or what do you recognize those to be?
These are close-up photos of the areas of damage 1 through 5.
Can I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Come on, to introduce and admit as the next exhibits. No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Before we begin, Madam Court Reporter, Your Honor, if I may approach just to show the next series of photographs.
Okay.
It's 196 through 205.
Thank you.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could publish some of those photographs for the jury as well.
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9811. With respect to what's up on the screen, Ms. Hartnett, you recognize what's now been marked as Exhibit 196.
Yes,
What do you recognize that to be?
that is an area of damage that I noted as area 1 in my notes.
Is Ms. Gilman, if I could have, photograph 9812, next one. Again, Ms. Hartnett, you recognize what's up on the screen as Exhibit 197.
Yes, I do.
And with respect to this, what are you doing here?
That is a close-up photo of the same area of damage, area 1.
That has some measurement that you're taking with reference to the size of that damage, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And did you do that respectively with each of the respective areas that you noted on each of the garments that you examined?
Yes, I did.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9813. Again, this is area 2, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9815. Again, what's up on the screen is Exhibit 200. Recognize this as what now?
That's a photograph of the area 3 that I noted.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9817. Now, with respect to what's now been marked as Exhibit 202, do you recognize that as well?
Yes, I do.
And is that the number 4 area that you noted on the right arm sleeve of the gray sweatshirt of Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes, that's correct.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9819. What's up on the screen is Exhibit 204. Do you recognize that as well?
Yes, I do.
And again, what is depicted in Exhibit 204?
That's the area of damage number 5 that I had in my notes.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
The photographs that I placed before you while the stenographer was marking the prior exhibits, do you recognize what's depicted in those?
Yes, I do.
And can you describe for the jury, sort of generally speaking, what's depicted in those, ma'am?
These are close-up photos of areas 6 through 11 that I noted on the long sleeve gray shirt.
And may I approach this retrieve, Your Honor?
Yes.
Your Honor, the call will seek to introduce as the next exhibits. No objection. And if I may approach the witness just to present another set.
Okay.
Exhibits 206 through 217.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Hartnett, what's contained in these photographs now been marked as exhibits 206 through 217. Those essentially sort of the same close-ups and then a close-up with a measurement that the jury just saw in regard to what you had marked as 1 through 5.
Yes, that's correct.
And this is just 6 through 11 on that same area in the right sleeve of Mr. O'Keefe's sweatshirt.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, with regard to the photos that I just placed before you a moment before, do you recognize what's depicted in those?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
These are the areas of damage 12 and 13 on the rear of the sweatshirt.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I'm off to introduce in a minute. Just place these.
Through 221.
Thank you.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, may I publish these photographs for the jury?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9837. And Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize what's up on the screen as Exhibit 218?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That's the exterior back of the gray sweatshirt.
And the items marked that you labeled as 12 and 13, are they depicted on that?
Yes, they are.
If you could, using a laser pointer, just draw the jury's attention to where 12 and 13 are.
Is it possible to zoom in on the numbers? I can't read them from here. So there's area 2 and area 12 and area 13.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9838. Exhibit 219 up on the screen, that's just a closer image of those areas you marked as 12 and 13. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Now, with respect to the other photographs that I had placed before you when the stenographer was marking those, do you recognize in general terms what's depicted in those?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
These are additional pictures of the sweatshirt in which I've also made some notations of areas that need further testing.
May I approach, Ron?
Yes.
Almost seeking introduce in a minute as the next exhibit.
No objection, Your Honor.
If I may, Your Honor, just place these before the witness.
Exhibits 222 through 230.
Thank you very much. Now, Ms. Hartnett, before I get to what's now been marked as Exhibit 222 through 230, I could just ask you a couple questions in regard to damage that you noted on this item or really any item. What is the process that you would go through as far as classifying damage to a clothing item?
I look at the macroscopic characteristics of the area of damage, and then I also examine the area of damage underneath the microscope.
And so what would lead you to make that sort of classification as far as something is damaged?
I look at the overall shape. I also look at the fiber ends. For instance, a tear will have rough fiber ends and possibly separation of the weave of the fabric, or a cut, you have even ends without any fraying.
Now, are you able to tell from your examination of those fibers and of those clothing materials sort of what caused those tears and cuts?
No.
Now, be familiar through your training experience with something called an ALS or an alternate light source?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury what your understanding of that term is and what, if any, use it had to you in this case?
An alternate light source is a light that uses a different wavelength that enables visualization of some biological fluids that can't be seen necessarily with the naked eye. On this particular shirt, I did use the alternate light source.
And what, if anything, did you observe when you used that?
I used that light source around those areas of damage to determine if there was any biological fluids that were fluorescing. The ALS did not show any stains in that area.
Now, with regard to what you had labeled as sort of tears or cuts 1 through 9 that you noted, did you do any additional testing or collecting specifically from those areas?
I collected 2 cotton swabs moistened with sterile water around those areas of damage.
And why did you do that?
It was told to me that potentially the victim may have been bitten by a dog during an incident. So I was taking swabs of that area to be sent out to determine if there's any dog DNA on that area.
Now, is that kind of testing, as far as canine testing or animal testing, is that something that your lab at the State Police Crime Lab is accredited or authorized to do?
No, we do not do that type of testing.
And is that sort of sent out to an external vendor then?
Yes, that's correct.
And is that something that you had done on any prior cases or any previous situations where you had collected items and sent it out to a specific lab for animal testing?
I did consult once with an external lab on taking those types of collections, but this is the first time I've collected and actually sent something out for that type of testing.
And specifically in this type of testing and in this case, what lab were those items sent out to?
We use the UC Davis Veterinary Lab in California.
And as far as prior to collecting or prepping or doing anything as far as collecting samples from that, who, if anyone, did you talk to, or what, if any, direction did you receive in regard to collecting those samples?
I'll allow it.
I emailed Terry Kuhn, who is one of the analysts at the clinic, who aided me in how best to collect the sample for their lab.
And what you were directed to do as far as collection, packaging, and shipping, was that at the direction of the UC Davis lab?
Yes, that's correct.
And you performed those functions in conformity with what Ms. Kuhn told you, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, with regard to those items, did you note, with regard to the clothing items, as far as the gray sweatshirt was concerned, did you note any stains on those areas? On that clothing item?
Yes, I did note stains in those areas.
And then what, if any, testing was done on those stains that you observed?
Can you be more specific what stains you're referring to?
So what I'm specifically referring to is the items on the gray sweatshirt, item 7-18, as far as any stains that you observed on there. Again, sort of moving on from what you had collected for the UC Davis lab, but in other areas of that item. Well, let me actually first turning back to that. So the item that we were talking about as far as where you collected stains from that were sent off to the UC Davis lab, which item were they collected from and where on that item were they collected?
I collected 2 swabs from the areas around the damaged areas on the right sleeve. I wasn't necessarily taking them from any stains. I did use the ALS to determine if there were any stains there, which I did not visualize. So I was doing that for potential saliva collection from that area.
And thank you for the clarity. I think that was me confusing as far as the questions go. So Turning away from that area as far as the collection for the UC Davis lab, in addition to that, what, if any, stains did you observe on that article of clothing, 718, the gray sweatshirt?
I also observed numerous red-brown stains on that item of clothing.
And so with regard to those red-brown stains, what, if any, testing was done on those stains?
On each of those stains, I performed a blood screening test as well as a blood confirmatory test.
And are those the same sort of initial testing that screening test you were talking about before, and then the confirmatory test?
Yes, that's correct. A different screening test was used in the lab than was used at the scene due to a protocol change, but essentially it's the same mechanism.
And was that with respect just to the gray sweatshirt, or were there other items of clothing of Mr. O'Keefe's that you tested with the screening test in the lab and a confirmatory test in the lab as well?
I examined other items of clothing as well.
Now, if I could bring your attention back to what's now been marked as Exhibits 222 through 230. Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could publish some of those photographs for the jury.
Okay.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could first have photograph 9841. And what's been marked as Exhibit 222. Again, you recognize what's depicted up on the screen?
Yes, I do.
And with reference to your observations of the red-brown stains on that clothing or any other item of clothing, similar to the tears or cuts or the damage areas that you observed, were those areas similarly marked with some sort of sticker?
Yes, that's correct.
And is it sort of the same linear path as far as numbering, or is it lettering, or how do you denote those?
For the red-brown stains on this item, I use letters.
Starting with A and then sort of going through it, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have, excuse me, photograph 9842. Again, do you recognize what's up on the screen?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
That would be red-brown stain A that I noted on the sweatshirt.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9843. And what's up on the screen, which has been marked as Exhibit 224, do you recognize that as well?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
Those are red-brown stains B and C that I noted on the sweatshirt.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9844. What's up on the screen now is Exhibit 225. Those are stains that you labeled B, C, and F. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
That's just sort of a pulled-out version of that to denote where B and C were located on the sweatshirt. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that's correct.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9846. And what's now up on the screen is Exhibit 227. And again, Ms. Gilman, if you could zoom in a little bit on those stickers. And Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize what's up there on the screen as Exhibit 227?
Yes, I do.
And these are two other stains that you noted as far as D and E on the same item?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, ma'am, with reference to the other photographs that I think you still have before you that I gave you when the stenographer was marking the last batch, do you recognize generally what's depicted in those photographs?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
These are photographs of item 7-17, the orange T-shirt that was told was belonging to John O'Keefe.
And what's depicted in those photographs, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed as far as the orange T-shirt was concerned in your lab that day?
Yes, that's correct.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'll also proceed to introduce the witness. The next exhibits.
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
I can read these.
Exhibits 231 through 241.
Thank you. Mr. Lally, we have a few minutes before lunch. Do you intend to display some?
I think maybe.
If you do it quickly, do it now.
Um,
If you're not, we'll take a break. Jurors, we're going to take
No,
the luncheon
that's-
break.
that's fine.
I'm going to see Counselor Tucker.
All rise for the court, please.